Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Spotlight on History for September 23rd, 2020. I'm Helen Dellinger, Curator of the Manassas Museum System, and I wanted to continue our theme today about music that we started with last week with our Civil War drum. Today we are jumping forward a few decades in time and taking a look at this fantastic Edison phonograph player from the late 19th century, along with some of the records, yes, these are records that were played on it. So a bit of history about this phonograph first. Thomas Edison, I'm sure you all know that name, successfully invented the first one in 1877. So that's the very first time we had one of those, and he was able to record and reproduce sound the following year. For his first recording, Edison used a tinfoil wrapped cylinder that was made out of metal. Now that didn't work out too good. It wasn't very practical for recording, and it wasn't practical for listening back, and so the phonograph garnered really little interest with the public. They just weren't interested in it at all. So Edison moved on to other things like inventing the electric light bulb and forgot about the phonograph. So other men, however, such as Alexander Graham Bell, found this idea of this technology very interesting, so they kept on trying out different methods for recording sound until they finally hit on using wax for the cylinders as a great medium for recording the sound and being able to play it back successfully. So Bell was the one that hit on that, and when Thomas Edison heard about that, the two men were big-time rivals. They didn't really like each other. Edison did not want to be outdone, so he returned his attention back to his original invention of the phonograph, and with Bell's ideas in hand, Edison came up with a thicker, all-wax cylinder that could easily be used repeatedly. So after a lot of back and forth in the court system, Bell and Edison agreed to patent share the arrangement, because both men had contributed very important ideas to how the phonograph would work. And soon, pre-recorded wax cylinders were found in homes and places of amusement all over America. So this is the first time that people could reproduce music in their homes from something other than playing it live. So the recordings lasted for about 2 to 3 minutes each, and after a few dozen uses, the cylinder would become no good anymore. So now that you have all of that fabulous background information, let's take a look at this Edison phonograph that is in the museum's collection. This piece right here, the round part, is where the speaker would have been located, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And I use the word speaker because when you see it, you're probably not going to recognize what it is. And it basically just amplified the sound that would come out of the player. So there's no control knobs on this. You can't adjust the bass and the treble. The sound comes out. So this piece right here, this is how you would pick this up. This was where the needle would be. So this would come back, and you would swing this part open. So this round part right here is where the wax cylinder would go. Now this is what a wax cylinder looks like. Here's one here. This played a recording of the Orpheus Overture. The name is on it right here. So you would slide it on. The name is always on the outside, so you know that you're putting it on correctly. So you slide it on like this, right into the center, slides right on, comes to a natural stop. You put that back so it doesn't spin off, and then you put this down. There would have been a crank on this to get it to go, but we don't have that. So then the speaker, this is the speaker. Ta-da! It says the Edison standard phonograph on here. So how the speaker attached was, believe it or not, it would go on. Many of you might have seen pictures of these in movies and things. It fits on right there like that. Can you see me? So this is how it would have played. So this would be, there's no side A or side B. There's only one side. It was powered again with a hand crank that would have fit right here. Ours is missing that. No electricity required. Just crank it up and let it go. So I dug around online, and I actually found a recording of what a wax cylinder would sound like. So I'm going to see if we can get this to work here. I don't know if it's going to work on Facebook. Let's take a listen. Okay, so that's a few notes, stanzas from a song called On the Shores of Italy. So that is how people listened to music back then, and this was considered state-of-the-art. These were very expensive. Only the people that were a little bit more wealthy could afford these. So how do you people in Facebook land think about how this compares to music of today? I carry my music around on this phone. I use Pandora. I have hundreds of songs right on here. They don't have that crackling and popping sound. I can play them over and over and over again, not just 12 uses. I don't have to have, like this, I don't have to have any electricity. It can just be turned right on, battery powered. And this is much easier than lugging this around. So you can imagine having this having to be lugged around. So that's a quick lesson. Oh, and before we go, I do want to also share with you, these wax cylinders did come in these nice little cardboard containers. Here's what they look like right here. Edison was smart enough to put his name and image on every single one. So when you bought them, they came down inside these little cardboard containers for safekeeping. And so we have quite a bit of these in our collection. I think we have a dozen different titles. Most of them do come in their containers. So there you have it, some very cool information about how the first recordings were made in history with music. So sports fans, you're going to want to join us next week when we share some of the baseball-related pieces in our collection, including a really neat autographed ball with a great connection to both local African-American history and Manassas history. I'm Helen Dellinger, and I'll see you next week.